Hello, my name is Abdigader Ahmed.
Hi, my name is Henry Moore.
And I'm Taysa Morales. And we're going to be going over the main question that we've been talking about this whole semester. How can we use what we have learned in this course to improve educational outcomes in an anti-racist way for Mexican and other oppressed communities in the US? So we're technically just going to go over these last couple of weeks and what we've learned to answer this question. Um, what are you guys' thoughts, like immediate thoughts on that question?
So, in terms of how we can go ahead and better the education system, we have to first realize on how the education system in the first place is so rooted in these colonial practices and how they are ultimately a detriment to students, uh, ultimately a detriment to students ever since it was first enacted.
Mm-hmm.
So a few things that I would go ahead and make take note is the first step would be the grading policy. How the grading policy currently is right now is that it is currently going ahead and prioritizing a learning that it doesn't go too deep into what is being taught currently. It goes ahead and prioritizes you, the student, to go ahead and take the information that is being given to you, being regurgitated to you practically, and regurgitate it back to the teacher via tests, quizzes, and etc. And once
Right.
that has been completed, you are then meant to go ahead and um, do the equivalent of pruning it from your mind so that you may go ahead and take in more information or only to go ahead and regurgitate it and do it all over again. Now,
Yeah.
because of that, you are not you're not really learning per se, you're memorizing and showing that you have memorized it. So my my proposal is that we go ahead and we start moving towards a more deeper learning, more labor based, in which the student is not graded on completion, but graded on did they understand what is being taught? Did they can they go ahead and make a basic argument out of it? And if
Mhm.
they can, then that's good. And they get credit out of that, in which case it does two things. It promotes them being able to understand what is currently being taught to them by their professor or by their teacher. And two, it it lessens the burden on the student and gives them a chance to go ahead and understand and actually get to know what it is that they're being taught.
I agree. That's a really good point. I feel like um changing the system and like the requirements, it's just so much pressure on the student. That's all they're focused on is getting that A to pass. So their main focus is passing rather than really thinking about what they're learning about for them to take it on to like next year or other learning opportunities where they could remember what they really learned and what was taught to them. But since I feel like they're so pressured because of like the requirements and how everything's laid out to them, like you said, they're just going to memorize it during the time being, but right when the class is over, it's nothing they're going to really drag on or remember and take it further into their life. That was a really good point you mentioned. I like that. Um,
Henry, do you have anything to mention in regards to this?
I guess that while I do agree that the grade system should change to be something that's, less racist, it's like, something that wasn't like made out of racism. At the same time, I feel like the oppressors, or like the people who, support the current grade system wouldn't be so eager to change it because as it's what they've always been using and they probably wouldn't see a problem with it or they wouldn't view it as racist. I mean, and back in like the 60s, there was like a bit of controversy over or like math being changed.
mhm.
So I feel like if the whole grade system were to be changed, then people wouldn't be so quick to support it.
Yeah, and like even like just putting the system aside, it's what we're being taught. It's like when our professor mentioned before, I, maybe like it was middle school or something, when he read that little article of in the textbook Mexican Revolution, and his teacher was like, "Oh, don't worry about that. We're not going to learn about that." It's like they're teaching us or making us focus on the wrong aspect of our history. Like, you know what I mean?
History is usually written by the winners.
Right. It's yeah. Um, I mean, kind of like what you mentioned, I also feel like we should recognize and redress bias in the system. I feel like that goes a long way as well. Do you guys agree? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Um,
in order to do that. I mentioned that the grading policy first off, but there's also another perspective of opportunities as well. Um, on average, those who are the white Asians, those people usually have, on average, more opportunities for them in order to pursue higher education and end up being able to land more job opportunities than compared to those, of Latinos, Black African Americans, Mex, and etc. Uh, oh,
well,
can
because the resources given to us is very limited versus a white person, you know?
to go ahead and realize that not even white people themselves are able to go ahead and benefit from the privilege that they have.
Can you say that again? The last part?
You I mentioned the fact that opportunities towards persons of color are very low compared to those like all that compared to, the white majority. However, I also need to go ahead and mention that not even the white majority can go ahead and share in those same opportunities due to socioeconomic circumstances. And
Mhm.
so, in Kendi's book, How to Be an Anti-Racist, they mention this.
Um, I do like that you brought that up. I believe we talked about this. I believe it was week 13. Um, we went over a question. It was, let me look for it real quick. Um, give
Yeah,
me.
I have the quote right here. Um, they Kendi illuminates the fact that not all white people benefit equally from racism, from the fact that they are considered the majority. Uh, Quote, for instance, it doesn't take into account how rich whites benefit more from racist policies than white, poor, and middle income people, end quote. So you can see there that it's not just racism itself that are denying opportunities to us, it's also our socioeconomic situation. And right now, how we can go ahead and gain a higher economic status is through higher education, which is currently being denied to us for the very same reason.
How would you, or how would you say, like, what the steps are that should be taken to prevent this from happening?
Well, first off, we need to go ahead and, frankly put, give opportunities towards those who are unfortunate and cannot get those very same opportunities. Now, in a more technical stance, we need to go ahead and bring opportunities towards schools, give them funding and needed in order to go ahead and put programs that could go ahead and give students that leg, that step up that they need in order to become competitive. And once that
Mhm.
happens, they have the better chance of being able to enter into colleges. And there, we need to go ahead and give them programs that could, like, for example, affirmative action that was currently shut down due to the fact that it was originally believed that it was towards benefiting persons of color, which is not the case. It was to go ahead and give them equal opportunities, not preference, towards persons of color, so that they may get the opportunity of pursuing higher education. Those are one of the policies that could be taken in order for them to get them that opportunity.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, definitely offering different programs would help expand one's mentality as well, not just keep it into like closed-minded, this is what you're supposed to think, so deal with it, you know?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
do you have any thoughts towards that?
No, I've got nothing to add. Yeah, you're, spot on.
Um,
Another thing that I would also would like to mention is, and something that I was also going ahead and talking about a little bit earlier is not just the racial aspect that is keeping those who are unfortunate oppressed. It is also the socioeconomic aspect as well. More specifically, capitalism as a whole. Right now, capitalism in its present state is by far one of the biggest opposers towards a more opportunistic society. And what I mean by this uh, is that the idea of the middle class. Now, what I mean by that is the middle class is essentially those who are able to go ahead and participate in the economy to the extent that they are unwilling to go ahead and make a change about it. So what I mean is, let's say that you are a working class person and you end up making enough money so that where you can afford a house, afford a car, and be able to pay for your family. You have no reason in order to go ahead and make a change compared to if you were a working class person. You're dealing with minimum wage, you're dealing with prejudice, workplace abuse, than compared to if you are a middle class person. And so so that acts sort of as a lure for your average person. Because if I can go ahead and I can say that, oh, hey, I can afford X thing or Y thing, then why would I want to go ahead and change that? That would change. Why would I want to change that? And so middle class people don't want to go ahead and have a more equal society for everyone because they want to maintain a status quo.
yeah, it kind of all falls back to just being selfish or being ignorant about it. Like you just want to, you don't want to get yourself involved into that. And in some cases, they just want to feel, because they know they have that advantage and the resources, superior.
It's the people in upper class who control capitalism, and it's middle class as who allows them to do so by wanting to keep the status quo. So by doing in that, they're protecting the upper class, whether it's
Mhm.
indirectly or not.
It's just like an ongoing, because you have that support from the middle class, they feel comfortable enough to just keep going. Yeah.
Yeah, so ultimately what we'd want to do then is what we want to do then is go ahead and have change come from the bottom. We need those who are willing to go ahead and protest for changes to happen in not just education, but in workplace as well, in the workplace as well. And we need to go ahead and also drag the middle class into it as well, because because I'll be frank with you, they're currently sitting on their ass and not wanting to go ahead and change anything about it. And so we need to drag them into this and get them to understand what it is that needs to be changed.
Yeah, I feel like in order to drag them into this, we also will have to show them what it is, like the real issue. So like in a classroom, if like the protest to gather up bigger community, it's bring real world issues into it and discuss it and discuss like the main issue of it and why it's not okay.
All right, yeah, I agree with that.
Mhm.
Henry?
I guess for people to want to enact change, they have to who sometimes find or experience like the root of the problem themselves.
And not even just like they don't have to experience it, but at least get an idea of what's going on. It's like with our groups and everything, we get different perspectives on like class discussion questions. And like there's been plenty of times where I hear someone speaking, I'm like, oh, I never really thought of it through that perspective. And it gets you really thinking and start reflecting on like the main issues and what it is that needs to be done. So again, just kind of like recognizing the issue and recognizing it's not enough. You could just recognize and keep going, like how we've talked about several times, how people are just ignorant about it and they just don't want to put that extra effort to try to make a change. So I feel like in our classroom, like I said, address the issue, get others' perspective, and to make others really fully understand too. And yeah, like I said, just bring real world issues into the discussion so everyone's more aware.
Yeah, I agree completely with that.
Me too.
So overall, I think that's all I think we needed to say.
Mm-hmm.
Um, did we hit 15 minutes?
Yes, just about.
All right, cool. So I think that's all I think we needed to talk about. I think that it's going to take time and it's going to take effort, but change must happen in order to go ahead and better ourselves and better our society.
I agree. Yeah, we definitely have to communicate more and be willing to collaborate with communities and just bring everyone together to really give out a bigger message.
Change is nature.
There you go. Yeah.